In today's lesson, we're going to go over reading tip gist statements. So, getting the gist. Step one to getting the gist of something is to name who the main character or topic of the text is. Step two is to describe the most important part or parts about that character or topic. And step three is to write a 10 to 20 words, depending on the length of the text, that basically summarizes what that piece of the text is about. So the gist is the main idea or the main point of a specific text. And you use this reading strategy when you're reading a long book or a long article and you want to remind yourself of the key points. So you're going to break that reading up into sections and you're going to follow these steps for that section. So let's look at an example. This is an article from Newsela about Dahomey women warriors. And I took the very first section of that article. So it's about 4 paragraphs. And it's the first section, and then there's another section followed by a heading. So if you're reading an article that has headings, that's a great way to chunk it or separate it out and then do your gist statements. So we're going to do our gist statement for this first chunk of the article, which is at an 830 Lexile, which is between 4th and 5th grade. So I'm going to read it, and then I'll go through the steps. The Kingdom of Dahomey was a small country in Western Africa. It was started by the Fon people in 1625, about 400 years ago. It ended more than 100 years ago in 1894. Dahomey covered the southern part of what is now the country of Benin. Dahomey was a warlike society, and its soldiers struck fear into their enemies. But some of their troops were not just fearsome. They were the only female soldiers in the world to be an official part of an army. Dahomey's female troops were known to Europeans as the Dahomey Amazons. The name Amazon comes from an ancient Greek myth about a tribe of women warriors. The Dahomey female soldiers were not the only armed women of their time. Female bodyguards could be found in other countries too, but they did not fight in wars. Dahomey's women warriors fought and often died for their kingdom and country. In the second half of the 1800s alone, as many as 15,000 died in battle. Stanley Alpern, an author who wrote about the history of the Dahomey, he believes the women warriors started as bodyguards for the Dahomen king when the Dahomens needed these women even more because the Fon were badly outnumbered by their enemies. For example, there were about 10 times as many Yoruba as Fon. The Yoruba were powerful people from the east. So now that I read this section, I'm going to do step one. Name the who or the main character or the topic of this text, which is Dahomey women. Describe the most important parts and then write that in 10 to 20 words. So I use the heading or the title to help me identify step one of the topic or the character. And that's who the text is about, which is Dahomey women warriors. And then I did step 2 and 3 together. Dahomey was a small country in Africa about 400 years ago that had a famous group of women warriors. These women warriors fought and died for their king. Many believe they started as bodyguards and became warriors as the small country became outnumbered. So now I can go on to the next section of this article and I will read the heading. I'll read everything under the heading and then I'll follow these 3 steps to get my gist statement. And then I will read the next section and the next section. If I was reading a book, I might do 1 gist statement per page or per 2 pages, depending on how dense the book is and how hard it is for you to understand facts. So again, this reading tip was about gist statements. And gist statements is basically taking reading that you've broken up into sections and summarizing the main point of each section so you can better comprehend what the overall text is about. Hopefully this was helpful for you. and you can use it in your reading to help you better understand what you're looking at.